Ladies and gentlemen, live from Auckland. Storyteller, pilot, lover, goat farmer, chicken farmer, Vaughn Davis.
Yes. I was a barber back then, which is how I came to meet Morton Coots. He owned the Waitemata Brewery. There's nothing he didn't know about beer. Every night, the workers would stop at the pub across the road, and Morton would watch them.
I think we're all familiar with the story now, having been told on our TV screens in between programs where we watch quite often. In fact, even also on movie screens as well before the movies start. It is the DB Export ad. Vaughn Davis in to talk ads, social media, and airplanes. G'day there, Vaughn.
Hey, how you going? Of course,
very good.
The news of the week, well, one of the bits of news of the week was bullshit on the DB Export ad.
What's the deal?
Well, Jim Anderson, of all people, staunch left-wing politician, complained to the Advertising Standards Authority a little while back that ad portrayed the history inaccurately. It said that the whole DB Export thing was a reaction to Nordemeyer's black budget, and Anderton said no, it wasn't. And the Advertising Standards Authority, which hardly ever upholds any complaints, said, yeah, you're right. So they pulled the ad.
Wow. Just because it was rewriting history.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not actually allowed to tell lies.
Yeah. Interesting. So what was the motivation from obviously the advertising agency wanted to tell a really good story.
Yeah, they wanted to spin a good yarn. They wanted to position DB as, the battling beer for the Kiwi bloke.
But at the same time, their noses were growing longer and longer.
Their noses were, yeah. So it's really educational. Go to asa.co.nz and there's the full record of all the complaints and why they've been upheld and why they haven't.
But it would be fair to say, regardless of it now being taken off screens, it's done its job, isn't it?
Well, only the brewery knows. Of course, the marketing guy at DB came out with the standard line. It only had a couple of weeks to run anyway, so no skin off our noses. But I'm sure the conversations between the agency and the client weren't quite as straightforward.
Well, there's been some more beer ad news this week, probably more sombre news, I guess.
Yeah. Frank Whitten shuffled off. Most recently famous as Grandpa on Outrageous Fortune, but for a lot of Kiwi ad fans, he's the good on you, mate. Old fella off the Spates ads.
It's so hard to rip. I know everyone's tried to say it the way he's never been able to do it. It's like, good on you, mate. Good on you, mate. Just can't do it. You can't do it.
No. So luckily Spates has moved on. In fact, Spates has moved on with their Summit brand to a really interesting place with the sort of Hulk speak, man like natural, man like free, which was another of the ads complained about in the Advertising Standards Authority website, but not upheld.
I'm over the whole man thing. I mean, it's on billboards now, it's across print ads.
Yeah,
on the telly.
Lion Red's going hard, with the whole, I can't remember the line, but, they're saying, buy a ute, that's man points, buy a hatchback, that's not.
Yeah, but I mean, like, beer's traditionally been man things, but now it's in yogurt, man yogurt.
Yeah, the mammoth yogurt, interesting. But, it's a niche. Yogurt's traditionally been advertised in the same way, fruity goodness.
And what's the campaign for road safety?
Oh, the man troll.
That's it. Yeah. I think we're done with the man thing. I think the agencies are going to move on, try something else.
Yep, why not? Well, one agency that has moved on in an interesting way has been DDB with their work for Cadbury.
Mm-hmm.
I talk a lot about the idea of just advertising how great you are, being sort of a bit of old school, and instead the way a lot of brands are behaving these days is to instead just be cool, be interesting, and let people find out about it. And give it a bit of a nudge as well.
Yeah.
So the whole Cadbury, Summer Joy campaign with the snow globe. My favourite, the clapping Christmas lights, where the more you crap, more you crap. That would be cool. And sort of a bit of brown chocolate tie in there. But no, the more you clapped, the brighter and more interesting the lights became.
I was wondering how they were going to get away with this. From neighbours to this house, people outside of this house clapping, and the lights go bright.
Them with chocolate.
Yeah,
that made the news as well.
More than chocolate, surely.
Yeah, it's the old Talent Quest clapometer turned into an ambient campaign, which is cool. And then they've come out with the TV ad, Sounds of Joy, in the last week or two, which it's pretty cool. Got Chris Graham to direct it and everything. But
is it user-generated stuff involved in that? Or
no, there's a big user-generated component to the campaign, and the whole Sounds of Joy website's really interesting. But this was push. This was sort of old school advertising agency deciding what was cool and putting it out. And it's beautifully done. I like it. But I don't think it's the best part of the campaign. The real stuff in the real world, I think, is the best part for me.
Okay. Well, moving on to social media, and Twitter could be the saviour of telly.
Twitter could be the saviour of TV. Imagine that. Well, there's a news story this week about maybe Twitter's going to get sold, maybe to Facebook, but those stories come around all the time.
Heaven forbid. Anyone else but Facebook?
Yeah.
Well,
but
and Microsoft.
Yeah. I love Microsoft. The interesting part for me was the CEO made a sort of a throwaway comment that Twitter is changing the way people watch TV. And when you think about it, it's true, because 5 years ago people were saying, hey, we're all going to move to time shift and digital video recorders and all sort of crap.
Yeah.
Now, a big TV event like the Mighty Johnsons or Outrageous Fortune or a big episode of Shortland Street, we want to watch it live, so we can talk to our friends about it on Twitter.
It socialises TV, doesn't it?
It socialises TV. It's that whole Super Bowl phenomenon on a smaller scale. You're all sharing an experience on a Sunday night, so you can talk about it.
And what it does is it perhaps makes people want to watch it live as it goes out on TV rather than on demand or torrented or these other ways that people get TV shows.
I think it's a really unexpected sort of consequence of social media, which is why I love it.
And outside of Twitter, I have been enjoying an app called Miso. At first I tried Get Glue, and now it's it's kind of like a Foursquare but for TV and films and books and whatnot, where you check in, and it's kind of like a social community into itself, because you can follow friends who are also watching shows and then comment on the show that they're watching and then comment on. It's kind of fun.
That's
anyway.
pretty cool. The whole idea of I've been looking at a book review site that sort of works in a similar way. It's sharing the experience and expressing who you are through what you watch and what you read, which is interesting.
Cool. All right, and on to aeroplanes.
There's been some flying news. Yes, a Valentine's Day present from Boeing to the world was the rollout, the official launch, if you like, of the Boeing 747-8, which is an evolution of the good old jumbo jet that was launched in 1969, almost February the 9th, 1969. So they got it pretty close for the first flight date.
Yeah,
and it's the biggest. It's the heaviest, longest airplane ever made in the United States, ever, military, civil, or anything.
But it's not the biggest in the world.
It's not the biggest. The old Airbus 380 takes that. But the Boeing people claim the 747-8 is more economical. It's going to make the airlines more money. Interestingly, they've launched it as a freighter, which is kind of going back to the 747 roots, because the reason that hump is on top of a 747 was because they thought by the time they made a few hundred of them in the late 60s, everyone would be going supersonic. They wouldn't want to fly in an airplane like that. Of course, yeah. So they allowed for the thing to be converted to freighter. Not that really panned out.
Now, in the test flights, I'm just watching a wee video, they're scraping the back of the airplane on takeoff.
Yeah, awesome.
Along the runway.
Was the velocity minimum unstick test there, which was it's some crazy video. Yeah, I hope you'll link to it on the video version of the show.
Yeah.
But interestingly, if you'd been at Auckland International Airport a few years ago, you would have seen a Singapore Airlines 747 pretty much do exactly that, because they'd grossly miscalculated their takeoff weights. So, there's a reason.
It's a dangerous thing.
There's a reason they test that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And so it's basically just testing to see whether or not you can do that.
Yeah, and to see just exactly how slow you can take off, because they create manuals and things that tell people the stuff, so they need to validate that.
From an ex and soon-to-be current pilot's point of view, is that a freaky thing to do?
It would be incredibly freaky, because if you watch the video, those guys would be staring at the sky. They wouldn't be able to see the runway. You'd be barreling this airplane, relatively slowly down the runway, huge airplane, without being able to see in front of you. So they'd be steering this thing on the compass, which is a pretty crazy way to take off. Well, it's standard instrument takeoff, but a very non-standard way of doing it.
Yeah, excellent. All right, thanks very much, Vaughn. Tweet this book. Go search for that in Google, and then go tweet that book and download his great book on social media, and also check him out on Twitter, twitter.com/Vaughn Davis. See you next week.